All right, so I want to thank everybody for being here today. You are in for a great conversation. We're going to be discussing food insecurities that impact foster youth. This webinar is entitled The Impact of Food Vulnerabilities in Communities. This is brought to you by Foster Media Connections Youth Voice Program. My name is Raquel Wilson. I am the Power Program Manager here at Foster Media Connection for the Youth Voice Program. I have been here for 2 years. For those who don't know, this is actually my 2 year anniversary as of 2 year days ago. And so, woo, um, I hope everybody can hear. If you're having technical difficulties, just drop it in the chat. I do see someone saying that they're having issues hearing. So let us know. Um, outside of that, outside of that, I just want to again thank everybody for being here today and attending this wonderful webinar. I'm also a former foster youth, so this work that I do, it just really means a lot. And I'm happy that I have this platform to be able to bring together other persons who have had lived experiences to talk about different issues that have impacted our lives throughout our journey through foster care and after. And so thank you all again for being here. And so just a little bit about the Youth Voice program. The Youth Voice, oh, yes, thank you. Just a little bit about the Youth Voice program. So the Youth Voice program, we provide writing opportunities to young people who have lived experiences in the child welfare and juvenile justice system, and also especially if they have been impacted by homelessness, through educational workshops, writing the poetry contest. We have paid contributor roles, fellowship roles, and just really, since I've come in, just really just creating the program that's for us, by us, and not only just walking the walk, but talking the talk and just being like a center focus and creating opportunities for foster youth and actually, genuinely showing that, we care about the development and the genuineness of them, being able to use their voices and empower other foster youth too as well. And so below, you'll also see our social media information. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to our newsletter, please do so that you can stay informed about all of the awesome things that we're doing here with the Youth Voice program and all of the awesome events and writing contests and things that we have coming up. And so, a food insecurity occurs when an individual or a group is in a state of being without reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. And so, foster youth, homeless, impacted, and juvenile incarcerated youth are all susceptible to being food insecure. And so, in the United States, 1 out of 7 people struggle with hunger. And we have also provided in this PowerPoint some statistics that support some of the evidence about the impact that food insecurities have on foster youth and low income families and communities. And so, after this webinar, you guys are going to receive a recording. The PowerPoint will be also provided to you so that you can take a look at the different statistics and also the resources that we made available for you. And so the next slide, thank you so much. The results of the national survey indicated that the 51% of children in kinship foster care compared to only 24% of children in non-kinship foster care experience food insecurity. And more than 42 million Americans are food insecure, meaning that they don't have access to adequate supply of nutritious, affordable food. And according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, oh Lord, that's a big number, over 580,000 Americans experienced homelessness on a single night in 2020. And we all know that, obviously because of the pandemic, that had a huge impact on foster youth and families, low income communities, of high income communities, middle class communities. One of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation today is because, during the pandemic, especially, a lot of our program participants that were on college campuses had to go home and didn't have no home to go back to. And I can only imagine and what that would be like now. And it reminded me of how that was when I was in college and the dorms, you have to move out the dorms at the end of the school year in the summertime and during winter break. but you have no family or nowhere to go. So you're like couch surfing for that time. So I just felt like this was a really important topic that we had to, that we needed to bring and highlight and bring awareness to, so that, we can just provide some different tools and tips on how to, help others who may be dealing with food insecurities. And so this slide is just another slide that we have provided, that has some statistical evidence and data, to show some of the impact that the that food, the lack of food, has on, different communities, especially foster youth. And so food insecurity is not only the issue. There's other issues that also impact the low income family communities, especially. And thank you so much, for you guys that are dropping and saying hello in the chat. Please keep it going. Please introduce yourself. Thank you. And so this is just a graphic example of statistical data that we've come up with, that we found during our research to highlight some of the different issues that not only foster youth are dealing with, but communities that have been impacted by not only the pandemic, but that are being impacted by low food shortage. And so what does the future look like if we don't take action? And so by 2050, 2 billion more will be born, 2 more billion people will be born and need to be fed. And that's a 25% increase, as well as a 56% demand increase on food than we saw in 2010, which is crazy. People of lower in economical standpoint will be the first impacted by this change. Goals need to be met by 2030, but we have seen an increase in demand for hunger since 2014. And so current agricultural rates cannot keep up with the growing population and increase demand for enough accessibility to food. And so as you can tell, there's a lot of different data that supports the facts that families and low income families and communities are being affected by and impacted by this. And while we're trying to bring awareness to the situation and highlight the issues that not only foster youth deal with, but the issues that their families deal with, which may keep them in foster care or etc. I just really think that this is important because it really just takes me back to my experiences when I was in the system, and lock cabinets in the foster homes, lock cabinets in the group homes, and it's just unfortunate that these are things that are still taking place and in the future are being foreseen as things that will continue to still can happen. And so the next question that we are asking, that we want you to ask yourself is, what can we do now? And so this is a list of different organizations that you can donate to, that you can, financially even, bring food. They do different food drives. These are organizations that advocate for the homelessness community, and they are specialized in supporting people who have experienced food insecurities. And so this will be provided to you, as stated before, this PowerPoint. You will get this in your thank you email, or your follow-up thank you email after this. And so these are organizations that you can check out. And if you're interested in, donating or volunteering your time during their canned goods drives or during their clothing drives, you're more than welcome to research these organizations and figure out how you can lend your support. So the next steps. So how to go even further. So always asking is the most important thing. Someone may not be ready to share or ask for help. So taking initiative and checking in on friends and family can sometimes be something that someone needs. And this slide really hit home for me because there was when you're in foster care, and I can't speak for everybody's experience, but my experiences, throughout, my time in foster care, I just, always remember being hungry. Like that's one of the things that I can always remember having a problem with. And it's crazy that, throughout all of the shopping and et cetera, and the money that, that you later on find out that the caregivers or the group home leader manager is getting, it's like, you know, this is unfortunate that this is happening, but this is a problem that's happening in the world. It reminds me of my experiences in college. When I was transitioning, when I emancipated, I was homeless. I slept outside and slept on couches for those 3 weeks before I went to school. And like nobody circled back with me and checked on me and see how I was doing or if I ate or if I was hungry. And so, you know, me having the courage to be able to speak about my experiences now, I wish that I would have had that tenacity back then too as well, because, you know, who knows how many people I could have touched and how many people would have been able to help me. But I just had too much pride. I didn't like asking for help. It's just the foster youth in me. But definitely this is something that impacts foster youth. This is something that impacts low income families. And this is something that we wanted to bring awareness to today, because obviously this is an experience that, you know, foster youth have through longevities of their life, throughout their journey of life, whether they're in foster care, later on after foster care. I'm sure that, and when we invite our panelists up, I'm sure that they'll be able to attest and share their experiences about how they have dealt with, you know, food insecurities throughout their journey. And so this is a slide to show you guys the cycle of poverty and food insecurity. You guys will also see this. This will be provided to you on the PowerPoint. And this just shows different things that impact, that, you know, also play in a role into why there is food insecurity and shortage of food, and, you know, what can be done to, you know, try to combat that. And so at this point, I want to say welcome to our wonderful panelists. I am so happy to have you guys here today. I can't thank you guys enough for being able to show up here today and be vulnerable enough to share your experiences. I do want to share this disclaimer that this is a safe space, not only for our panelists, but for our audience members. And so things that are shared here today, although this is being recorded, we asking that it stays here. If there is some knowledge that you did receive or something that you did hear that you feel like could be passed along or should be passed along to whether a foster youth or someone, we ask that you please do it with, you know, sensitive discretion. And so that, you know, when we welcome our other panelists or when we welcome other audience members, that they feel free to ask, you know, questions, and that our panelists feel free to, you know, express themselves freely, you know, and without, you know, feeling like they are, you know, either saying too much or not saying enough. And so, again, thank you guys for being here today. With this time, I want to introduce our panelists. And so the first person I am going to bring up, in just 1 second. And so we have Ariel, who is a former foster youth, a rising senior at San Francisco State University. She's a mother, affordable housing advocate. She's a foster youth advocate, a mental health advocate. Yes, ma'am. She inspires to be a PhD candidate upon graduating and to help dismantle systematic oppression in inherited public policies such as education, public assistance programs, and criminal justice, as well as do research on the triad of effects that poverty has on people of color and immigrants. She hopes to leave the world at a better place where there will be more equity, more equality, inclusion for all people. And so we wanted to thank you, Ariel, for being here today. Just you can wave to our attendees in the background. And then so next up, we have a Tori, who goes by Tori B. She's also a mother, a leader, and a believer, which I love when I read that part in your bio, Tori. She's also considers herself to be a survivor of foster care. She recently started to attend Victor Valley College in preparation to become a school counselor. Her purpose in life is to own and operate a faith-based community center to assist young people who wants to overcome trauma through athletics and resources. And so, Tori B, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate you. And then so we have Kiana Dean, who is a film student at Mount San Antonio College. She is the founder of two organizations, My Voice Speaks and Kiana's Closet for Kids. Her goal is to become a segment producer to tell authentic stories. I love that. Thank you so much, Kiana, for being here today. And then last but not least, we have Skylee Ross, who is a doctoral candidate. I don't know why it's not letting me click. I'm sorry, give me just 1 second. She's a trauma therapist, a published author, and a social justice and human rights advocate. She's born and raised in the poorer parts of northern Pasadena. Sky has navigated the resources available to her at a young age, having a family history of chronic mental and physical conditions as well as disabilities. She was exposed to abuse, neglect, and went into foster care at age 16. This opened more doors for her, introduced her to a loving and supportive foster mother, and allowed her to pursue higher education. She's went to several different schools, and I want to commend you because I am trying to dodge Sally Mae by all means necessary. So I want to keep going back to school. So I am sending you, peace and love, for continuing to, keep going back to school. I love that. She's inspired by her early experiences with her own personal therapist. She became passionate about the field and determined to give back. Now working on her dissertation, which focuses on exploring the health outcomes of early trauma of ethnic minorities, former foster youth, and the LBGQT community. She has dedicated her life to serving these marginalized communities, providing therapy and education, and educating others on the importance of mental health. And so, Skylee Ross, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And at this time, we're going to just jump right into our questions for our panelists, and this conversation component. I want to reiterate this again, that this is a safe space for our panelists and our audience members. If you guys have a question, whether it be for me or specifically for any of our panelists, please drop those in the chat and we will be responding in the chat. And I will be also answering, having our panelists answer some of the questions after we get through our questions. If there is anything else, then yes, let's jump right into the questions. And so first, I would like for each of you guys to come on and share a little bit about yourself, about your journey into foster care. And we can start with Ariel.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Feels really great to be on here. I was put in foster care at the age of 14. I was in 5 different homes in the span of like 9 to 12 months. I finally reunified with my mom when I was 16 and a half. In my experience with foster care, it was really hard being in the Bay Area. There's not a lot of foster parents. And then unfortunately, just a lot of foster parents trying to use the money to live off of. And then that obviously affected like the quality of care that you were getting. And then you also had people that were trying to like live vicariously through you they didn't have children, so they thought of you as their children, but they didn't trust you. It was such a weird dichotomy. But yes, that was my experience.
Thank you so much, Ariel, for sharing that. I really, really, really appreciate that. And so you guys are all free to just hop in and share your experience. Whoever wants to unmute themselves, go ahead, or I can just call you back out. It's up to you. Oh, feel free, Kiana. You're more than welcome to share.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I was in foster care like the day after I was born. So my mom, she was a drug addict, and when I was born, like I had all these issues like going on with my body and different things that was happening to me. So I had to be in the hospital for like a day because due to the drugs. So I was placed in a foster home the day after I was born in Bellflower. And I was grateful enough and gracious enough to be placed in a foster home that was so secure and it made me feel so safe. And I was in there for about 3 years. And the foster parents were they were amazing people. They were believers in God. And my entire time in the foster home, I was surrounded by just amazing, caring, delicate people. And then when I was 3 years old, I was eventually adopted. And I was also adopted into another loving, caring home where I felt so safe. And I am nothing but grateful for that, that I had that and I still have it as well. And like once I was adopted, um, I was with my mom till about 9 years old, but then I had to be placed in another foster home because something happened with my mom and I. So I was in another foster home for about 2 weeks when I was 9 years old. But then I eventually was able to go back to my mom because the situation wasn't as like be in another home or like I couldn't stay with her like ever. So I eventually moved back to my mom. And so yeah, like I've been with her till I was with her until like I graduated high school. Um my experiences in high school was pretty tough and middle school. I was like constantly bullied because of my face. Like I was born paralyzed because of the drugs. So I was constantly bullied because of my face and kids are always like comment like why do you smile like that, you know? And like why is your face like that? Because like my face always twitch. So they would always ask me like why is your face like that? And so like I was always bullied because of it. So it was hard with that in school and I had to transfer to a private school because the bullying got so severe. And then I in high school it was like I had it was a much better experience in middle school, honestly. High school was good, but I got through it in a way just like having support, um, with me, people to talk to, and I knew I wasn't alone. So yeah, so that's like basically like my experience. And then I after high school I attended UCLA Extension and I studied media, like media and communications. And now I'm at Mount Sac Antonio, studying for TV. So yeah, that's my experience.
Kiana, thank you so much for first of all being vulnerable enough to share that with us. Like for real,
Thank
it was
you.
really, really beautiful, and I really, really applaud you for being able to just just leave it on the table. And really, that's what it's about. I'm sorry to hear that you were bullied. If we would have went to the same high school, that would not have happened. I'm telling
Mhm.
you right now. But nonetheless, just thank you so much for just being so vulnerable enough, and we're really, really happy to have you here today.
Thank you,
And
Rico.
so I'll pass it over to Sky, and then Tori, you can hop right on in after she finishes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Skylee Ross. It's nice to virtually make your acquaintance. Yes, I was placed in foster care at the age of 16. It was really a saving grace for me. It was a miracle because my biological family was so incredibly abusive. I mean, in all various forms of abuse that you could imagine: physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, a lot of neglect, um, a lot of poverty. So I was bullied a lot too, actually. I can relate to Kiana somewhat. I was the stinky kid going to school, the kid wearing the clothes that are covered in stains and My biological mother was very paranoid. A lot of mental illness runs on both sides of my family. And so she did not believe in deodorant. She did not believe in conventional medicine. She thought those things would give you cancer or Alzheimer's disease. So she would not allow me to really wear deodorant or, really give me any money for soap or things like that, bare necessities that people can take for granted every day. I was not allowed to get those types of things. So I was the kid that they made fun of. They said, "Oh, you live in a box," or people stopped talking to me because I smelled bad, or they made fun of my hair. They put stuff in it. They put pencil shavings and lead and chunks of erasers and candy wrappers. It was awful. So I can relate to that. Middle school was a very hard time in my life. But high school came, and that was a little bit better. And I was able to get put in foster care, and I was so grateful. I had to fight for months. I think it was from February 2009 until October 2009. I had to fight because social workers did not believe me when I told them about the abuse, and I was desperate to get out of the home. I was suicidal starting at the age of 9 because that's how bad the trauma was, at least for me. And I was an only child too. So I was pretty much trapped in the home with my biological mother, biological uncle, and biological grandmother, all maternal. And so I fought for months to get placed in care. And I was very fortunate. Finally, in October, I was able to be placed with a very loving foster mother, Mrs. Jackson. I still talk to her to this day. She's a very educated woman, very sweet, very, very faithful, very spiritual, believer of Christ. And she's such a sweetheart. And so that really did open doors for me. I was able to go to school. I was able to go to UCLA for my undergrad. That was something my biological mother didn't want me to do. She was very paranoid, and she assumed that if I left Pasadena, that is my hometown, if I left my city, she assumed that I would die in an earthquake and that the buildings at UCLA would collapse in on me. So obviously that didn't happen because I'm alive to tell you all the tale. So I did survive. And so I studied gender studies. So my background is in social justice. And then I went on to Pacific Oaks College, like my foster mother, and got my master's in marriage and family therapy. So I am an associate marriage and family therapist, and now I am a doctoral candidate. And I am studying health outcomes, basically expanding on the ACEs. If you're not familiar with that, that is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey that was conducted by Kaiser Permanente and the CDC in the late 90s. And they looked at about 17,000 adults to look and see how early adversity in childhood, meaning abuse, neglect, any type of trauma, abandonment, mental illness, addiction, having a parent incarcerated, etc. They were looking at how do those experiences in childhood affect your health over time. And they found that people who did have high numbers of ACEs were at higher risks for conditions like heart disease and obesity, stroke, cancers, things of that nature. And so I'm pretty much utilizing that research to expand on it and show what happens within our community. Because if you really want to see how adversity affects life in the long term, you have to look at the people who have the most adversity. And in the original ACEs study, about 42% of their population of their sample didn't even have any adversity in their childhood. So if you're looking at health outcomes, why not look at the community that has the most trauma and the most adversity in childhood? And so I'm happy to say that I completed my research. I'm just in the last phase of my dissertation doing data analysis and data entry. I was able to survey and have focus group discussions with 55 former foster youth, about 5 focus group discussions, and they also did a quantitative questionnaire. And I found a lot of prevalence of health conditions, a lot of fatigue, a lot of trauma, a lot of back pain, all kinds of issues that sometimes we don't tend to think are connected to the traumas that we face. So being a former foster youth myself and someone who lives with several chronic health conditions, my research is very important to me. I'm very passionate about it, and I hope that I can also illuminate the resilience that our community has. We have been through a lot, but we are also incredibly resilient, incredibly strong, incredibly intelligent. So those are just things that I aim to show.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to share a little bit about your background. And I again want to applaud you for the educational route that you have taken. That is one of the things that I definitely want to inspire other foster youth to do is to go to school, and at least get that experience. Being able to go to school was something that changed my life. I don't know where I would have been. Like, I literally was homeless after I emancipated, so it's like having a dorm to go to. That little small little closet was everything to me, during that transition from emancipating, and getting out of foster care. And so thank you so very much for sharing your experiences and all of the things that you have done, to advocate for our community, being able to circle back, and give back, educational wise, knowledgeable wise, is a good thing. And so I appreciate you.
Oh, and
And I
Raquel, I wanted to say I could also relate to you. I was homeless, whenever there was a summer break, winter break, they evacuate the campus. So I relate to that. I was couch surfing, house hopping. Yeah, that's a huge issue that affects our community. They don't really think about former foster youth that are in college. They don't think about international students that have nowhere to go. So yeah, that was a huge issue that faced me, but I was able to get through it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, me too. Praise the Lord. We're going to dive into that, when we get into our questions. I want to give Tori, the chance to come on and share her experiences real briefly, and then we're going to dive into some of the questions that we have, and then we will, welcome some of our attendees. Some of our attendees to, also, ask questions as well. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a beautiful day today. I'm glad to be here with you all. It's sometimes sucks gonna last because you compare your story to everybody else's, and you try to, or you think about if what you went through is you compare it. And so I thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing what you've had to encounter. I've learned over, just time is that everything happens for a reason. Every single thing that we go through happens for a reason. And so if no matter how large or minute the situation may be, I specifically was meant to go through that, and is to build us to be the people that we are today. So my experience in foster care was all over the place. It changed every home I went to. I went into foster care at the age of 14, after leaving my grandmother's home. Um, One day I went to school, and one of my counselors seen that I wore same clothes to school a couple days in a row, and he said, "No, this is not like you. What's going on at home?" Kind of broke it down to him, cried everything, and that was it. That was the day. A worker came to my high school, Pacific High School in San Bernardino, and had my grandmother come up to the CFS office and asked her, is Tori going home with you today, or is she going into a foster home? My grandmother said, you know what, I just can't do it. I lived with my grandmother because when I was 4 years old, my father murdered my mom. We were from Compton, and my mother had 7 children. And so my grandmother, her mother, took us all in and moved us out to San Bernardino and tried to raise us, pretty much. I have 6 brothers and sisters. I'm the second to the youngest. So she tried to take care of everybody above me, and everybody had trauma. Everybody had hurt. We all kind of was just trying to figure out how to move on, how to live life, how to readapt to things. And so when it was my turn to hit adolescent, it was like, oh, I am through. I can't do it. I can't deal with it. She has to go. And so I went into foster care, and I went into throughout my time from the age of 14 to about 21, because I did the 80-12 and stayed in at the, and stayed until I was 21 years old. I was in many different foster homes. I don't even remember the amount. It was so many. Um, Partially because of my own mistakes, and then also certain homes just didn't fit with my personality. Social workers were like, you know what, okay, we're going to remove you. But I would say that the experience was good in some places. I was able to learn a lot from specifically a woman named Mrs. Lowe in Rialto. Um, Her and her family taught me so many things, small, really small things, such as just like washing my face properly, or purchasing clothes at a quality store, so that I didn't have to, every time you got your clothing allowance, you wouldn't have to go and spend it on the same exact thing. So it was times like that where I was able to receive good things from foster care. And then it was times where, like we discussed it today, I went hungry. I didn't eat. I didn't feel comfortable going inside of other people's refrigerators, or they just didn't open their home to me, and I stayed inside of my room for days at a time, and ran away different times because of just not being comfortable, and feeling like the streets were more open and free than being living in someone else's home. So my experience was all over the place. I say that to say that it was for a reason. I'm a mother now, take really, really good care of myself, have everything of my own now. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, just being independent and being able to strive and take care of our business, because the things that I went through when I was a teenager set me up to know how to go through things and how to overcome them. So, like I mentioned, I appreciate everybody, sharing their stories, and keep going. Don't stop. I'm not stopping. You don't stop.
Tori, thank you so much for also being vulnerable, for sharing a little bit about, your dynamic and your family history. I definitely can relate to some of your story. I've come from a 7 family sibling home too as well, but I'm the second oldest, so it's the mama bear and having to take care of my brothers and sisters. But unfortunately, we were split up. To hear you say that you can't remember how many foster homes you were in because there were so many, it makes me sad because I remember how many I was in, and 33 is like the number that like will like stay embedded in my head. And I also went to foster care at the age of, well, I went to foster care from 5 to 8, but the time that was really, really significant and traumatic was from 14 until I emancipated. And so I definitely can relate to your story and appreciate you for being here today. Life will definitely hit you at full circle. I always say I remember I used to be in those homes and I used to be wanting to kill myself, and I used to be asking God, like, why am I here, Lord? Why me? And now through this job, through this platform, through being able to create conversations like these, and being able to provide you guys a space and writing forums to be able to express yourself and your lived experiences, that's what it was for. Like, that's why I went through that stuff, so that I can be able to share my story. And so that's really what it was for, so that you can be able to share your story. Right now there's someone out there that is a former foster youth or current foster youth, and they're going through something that we went through, or somebody that is watching this might want to share this with a foster youth that they know. And hearing any of you guys' stories will empower them and inspire them to use their voices and feel powerful, about the things, even though they were traumatic, and even though they had huge impact and affected us, but to feel powerful and to stand in it now, because it's our truth and we can't change it. We can't change it. And so thank you so much for that. And so the first question that I have for you guys, I wanted to know, how was your experience? What was your experience like, now that you have shared a little bit about how you transitioned into foster care and what that journey was like? What was your experience like with your access to food? And Tori, I'll start with you. I know that you, started and shared briefly about, some of the food insecurities you faced while you were in care. Could you please elaborate a little bit more about those?
Yeah, of course. So food insecurity is like having limited access to food, or nutritional food, or whatever the case may be, not having adequate access to the food. And in foster care, I remember you mentioned actually locked cabinets. That was something, especially because I entered into foster care at the age of 14. So I was able to know what it's like living with biological family, and then an immediate, abrupt change. You know, um, Locked cabinets, definitely went through that. Uh, especially because sometimes I was a night owl, you know, so I'm up and my stomach is grumbling at nighttime, but don't you dare go down them stairs and go in that woman's kitchen. You don't do that, okay? That was one of the first things that she told me not to do. So, being afraid to just say like, hey, can I grab a snack, you know? And I have a child now, and it's like, no matter what we go through, sweetheart, you don't ever have to ask me to go inside that refrigerator. Okay. You go in there, you get what you need, you know, so that you make sure that you're nourished, you know? So the fear of asking someone, the uncomfortableness of going inside of someone, feeling like you're sneaking, feeling like you're stealing, you know, like those type of things were the thoughts that came across my head when in some of the homes. Um, and then also like going out to lunch. I remember sometimes and you not getting anything. Like just sitting in the car, you getting back to the house, and you know certain people is eating certain things, and no, go make you something, like, you know, you've been at school or you just ate or something like that, you know, like those things were those play back in my head. Um, and then my first foster home actually was, we were of different cultures. And so I experienced food insecurity there because they didn't have the food that I ate. You know, it was nothing accessible that was appealing to me. And so, although they were very nice and generous and things, they just didn't shop for the things that I was used to. So instead of trying something new in a foreign place, I chose not to eat. So those were some of my experiences.
Tori, thank you so much. Oh Lord, we will talk later because I definitely share, unique experiences with you, especially with the lock cabinets. That's something that I despise. Hearing you talk about your, your transition into motherhood and how that has been for you. Like, I was scared. Like, I literally just had my first baby. I had my first baby at 30 because I was afraid to be a mom. Because one, I didn't want my baby to go to the system because I feel like because you're a foster youth that they automatically look at you like you're going to be like an abusive, neglectful parent. And so, like, even the anxiety of not wanting to take my baby to the hospital when she's sick, like those things, those are some of the fears that I still have now. And so to hear you talking about how give your baby, my baby will go in the cabinet, bring 8 packs of chips out. I'm gonna open up all 8. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember a time when I was denied food. And and the crazy part is it's like my biological mom is a cook. Like, she's like cooking, she throws down. And so like to have, a system tell me, because my mom, and we was abused. Like, it's no question around it. I definitely was abused, physically, like to extreme measures. But I feel like that's something that I could have lived with, versus the things that I dealt with when I went to the system. And I definitely would have ate. There definitely wouldn't have been locks on the cabinets, and so to have a system tell me that the biological family that I was a part of, they wasn't good enough, but to know that I went through worser things when I went to the system, as it relates to, food insecurities and the different issues that we dealt with, it's just ironic to know that we all were living in different places and we were, having similar experiences, and so it's really good to be able to now, life hitting this full circle, and I'll be able, we're able to now know each other and be able to share our experiences together. And so I want to pass it over to to Ariel, because Ariel actually has to go. She has another engagement, but I do want to allow her some time to still answer this question before she logs off and to say her farewells and goodbyes. And so, Tori, please come on at this time and answer the same question. So, what was your access to food like while you were in foster care?
It's kind of in a sense similar to your guys, like living with biological parents, obviously just culturally as well. Like my mom know how to cook too. Like I had my great grandma, my grandma. So I've only had like good food and like food that they make fresh. They start on Sunday, have it for you Sunday dinner. So I was just used to that. And then my first foster home, there was no cooking. She didn't cook. And then it was hard for me because my mom did everything for me, so I'll be codependent on her. So I didn't know how to cook. So it was hard coming from a place of like, you're in foster care, you don't know how to cook, you're going to this new place. Something that I noticed, which was super wrong, is that she only bought you frozen food. There was no fruit, no vegetables, no nothing. So it was like TV dinners. Like TV dinners and like chips and like, so you're hungry because that's not real food. So you eat that and then you're hungry. And then she only went to the store like every week and a half. So if you go through the stuff that you like requested, like that's it. So it was like, and I remember telling my social worker, like, there's no fruit. Like, there's no fruit. There's like no vegetables. There's nothing that I can eat that's going to like sustain me. And then she also was a person where she's like, use your little $60 allowance for everything. Like, I'm supposed to buy a phone with that. She don't want me using the phone. You're supposed to get food with that. Like, if you don't like, if you need more food than that, then you need to get that yourself. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with $60? So that was my first experience. I ended up leaving because of that and just like other situations. And then the next home, same thing, different culture. The portion sizes were different. Like, I'm used to those big neck bones. Like, I'm used to those black eyed peas, greens, you get whatever you want. Like, I'm used to that. And then going to like someone from a different culture, the portion sizes are different and it don't taste good. And you're like trying to eat it and then it just doesn't taste good. So it was really kind of hard. And then the third one, same thing as the first one. We only had fast food, so she never had any groceries. And I got sick. I have a sensitive stomach. It was like a horrible experience. And then, of course, as you keep going deeper into the homes, the social workers blame you. They're like, why are you so difficult? And it's like, I'm not difficult. Eating fast food every day doesn't keep me full. It doesn't help me go to school and learn all this material while trying to also process the trauma that I have experienced. Like, that doesn't fix that. So it was like, and kind of like you already mentioned, you're just like, I'm dealing with this, but I didn't have to deal with that at home, and it was just hard to deal with other things that were horrible. But like, at least I got like food. At least I know that I wasn't getting sick. I was getting constantly sick. My hair was falling out. It was just like, I was unnourished. I had to end up in the hospital. I was so stressed out. I had neck spasms. I had a neck brace. It was a lot. So it's just unfortunate that a lot of times some of these foster parents are in it for the money, and that really shows with what they provide for you. Because it was not just food, it was deodorant. They didn't want to provide basic essentials. And then they'll be mad when you tell your social worker, like, because they give you a pamphlet. They're like, these are all your rights. If you deserve food to nutritious food, fruit, vegetables. And then you're like, well, these are my rights. And they're looking at you like, please just take this and keep it moving. They don't want to see you. And that's also re-traumatizing because we already didn't feel seen when we were going through our abuse. So yeah, that was my experience with food insecurity.
Well, Ariel, we know that you have to go, so we want to just thank you so much for being vulnerable again, sharing your experiences. I look forward to you being a panelist, in the future for other conversations. We have some great topics coming up. So I'll be reaching out to you. But thank you so much again. In the chat, I have dropped Ariel's email. If you guys had a specific question from her in the audience that we didn't get to get a chance to ask, please send her an email and just say hi. Yes, and ask the question. But again, thank you, Ariel. At this point, we're just going to dive right back into the questions. And so the next question that I have for you guys is, and so and so outside of the foster care system, now let's get into the pandemic system, because let's get into the pandemic, because during the pandemic, it brought up so many memories and things that I had, like, kind of put in the back of my head that I had dealt with. But just, having the fear. And I actually got pregnant during the time right before the pandemic hit. Like, it was crazy. I have a crazy story, but I actually was pregnant with my child during the time that the pandemic had started, but no one was calling it the COVID-19 at that time. And so it brought up a lot of fear, a lot of different anxieties, a lot of different questions that reminded me of foster care. And so I wanted to dive into you guys' experiences dealing with the pandemic, and how the food and whether food insecurities, played a part during in your life during the pandemic. And if so, how did that, remind you of your experiences in foster care? And any of you guys can feel free to unmute yourself and answer. Okay, so I'll just pass it over to Sky then. You're the first person I saw.
Oh, that's fine. Well, okay, let's see. The question about the pandemic. Well, let me rewind for 1 second. Let me go back to the question that we initially asked, because it's funny. My experiences were the opposite of Ariel's, but the same, because all of the things she described her foster parents doing is what my biological parents did. So their food, I mean, my biological mother, I call her my egg donor. I don't refer to her as mother because she's not a mom in any sense. Her food was disgusting. Lots of frozen food, lots of fast food, to the point of where before I got placed in foster care, like literally a week or so before, I had to go to the hospital, and they put me in a wheelchair, and they thought I had appendicitis. It was actually just constipation. There was just a big wad of poop because I was eating fast food every single day, like no real nutritious food, things that were just absolutely disgusting. And then my biological mother would give me an allowance of like $10 or $15 and expect me to buy everything with that: pads, tampons, soap, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant. She would not buy any of those things for me. So when I got placed in foster care and I got a $60 allowance, I was like, I'm rich compared to where I came from. So it's just interesting. But yeah, so to go back to the pandemic, so when the pandemic began, I was in my doctoral program, and I was not employed yet. I was looking for a paid position. So because I'm disabled, I have so many chronic health conditions, both physical and mental, I cannot work full time. I can work part-time just fine, but I cannot do a full-time job. I have chronic fatigue, chronic pain. My sleep has a lot of issues, a lot of disturbances. So it's very hard for me to be able to work that much. So I cannot do it. And so it took a long time to find a paid position. And so during that time, I had tried to apply for food stamps, but they do not allow you to. If you are a student, a college student, they expect you, if you're a former foster student, they expect you to be enrolled in some sort of support service on the campus specifically for former foster youth. But because I was at a grad program, it's not a public university, it's a nonprofit school. So I didn't have the access like I did when I was at UCLA. They have a Bruin Guardian Scholars Program. Many colleges, many public schools, Cal States, UCs, et cetera, they have Guardian Scholars Programs or equivalent that help former foster youth. But if you're at a private school or you're at a small nonprofit school, they don't have those resources. So then you automatically don't qualify because they expect you to be working 20 hours. And so if you're a student full time, you then have to get a 20-hour job. It's already exhausting to be a full-time student, especially if you're a parent. For me, it's just because I'm disabled, so that's already exhausting. But then when you finally get a job, if your hours get cut, you lose your food stamps instantly. And then when I finally got hired later in 2020, it was around October when I finally got a position, I was making too much money, which is ridiculous considering that the income that I make is barely enough to pay my rent and my bills. That's it. There's nothing left over. I have loans and scholarships in the bank. There's no income left over each month. I am completely supporting myself. So it's ridiculous that they assume that you're making too much money when it's really just enough to get by. And so I've tried so many times to apply for food stamps and I just always get denied. it's always a different reason. And so it's ridiculous that we make it that hard. And so I would say, and this is an answer to future questions too, but I would say we really need legislation passed to just mandate food stamps for all former foster youth. If Medi-Cal, if Medicaid, if health insurance is promised to us until the age of 26, we should just expand food stamps as well, and not just to the age of 26. We do not have any parents taking care of us, most of us. We do not have those family connections. We do not rely on financial support from relatives or parents most of the time. So why not just expand these programs and mandate that we are covered so we don't have to worry about starving? And I'm very fortunate that I do have scholarships, I do have loans, and I'm also connected with other organizations like Journey House and Echoes of Hope. Echoes of Hope gives me a gift card for the grocery store, so I can go to Ralph's or I can go to Vaughn's. And they've given me vouchers for DoorDash so I can have food delivered. They've given me vouchers for HelloFresh so I could have meals that could come be delivered and I can prepare them myself. So those have been my saving grace as well, being connected to organizations that fulfill that need, but they shouldn't have to. If the government would just give us food stamps, they wouldn't have to do so much.
Yes, right. You said a whole lot. And I support the idea of us being able to get food stamps. It's very unfortunate that they expect us to survive the system, have the courage to go to college. And while we're in college, we're still pulling ourselves up by the bootstrap. And to not only figure out how we're going to support ourselves, because financial aid is not like financial aid really helped me pay my rent, and I can attest to that. And thank you for that. But after my rent was paid, it was like I still had to figure out how I was going to eat, and just knowing that the system, you have to work 20 hours a week in addition to going to school, in addition to, you know what I'm saying, doing the work study program because you're at the school and you're from, like, it's just too much. Like, and it's almost like they're really like we're being set up to fail after we were already were put in a failing situation. And so thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Tori, I want to pass that same question over to you. During the pandemic, if you had any food insecurities that you dealt with, and how did that experience remind you of foster care?
Yeah, so the pandemic is still happening. It's still going on. I think it's most prevalent now because of the inflation on costs. Everything is much more expensive. So I don't receive food stamps or anything like that. I've tried. They've given it to me at one point in time, but let me get a little raise at work, and now I'm over income. It's just me and my daughter. So is so that definitely helped at a point in time, but now that is, I'm and I don't want to make it seem like the government assistance is required or anything like that, because I understand we have to work, we got to get out there and we got to get it. We all go out there and we get it, but we still come up short, so it's like, oh, where can I get this little extra from? So the assistance would be helpful, and it's helpful to people who, it should be helpful to those who are doing something. Like, it sucks sometimes when I see, like, that's another story, but the inflation on cost right now is like ridiculously high. I think I went inside of the store the other day and spent almost like $15 on a pack of, like, 12-piece chicken, and I'm just like, this is crazy, the amount. So instead of getting organic, or instead of going to like a store that, has a reputation for good food, you find yourself at a market that don't have the best reputation, because you got to eat, but you got to also be able to afford the food, So I think that right now, with the pandemic still going on, the lack of assistance from, agencies, um, and then the inflation on the costs, that's really hitting hard right now. I work right now for Community Action Partnership of San Bernardino County. So if any of the attendees are on the chat, or, live in the county of San Bernardino, California, we issue so much food to the community, so much food. It is food bank food. A lot of it is like non-perishable items and things like that. But if anybody's struggling with receiving anything like that, Community Action Partnership of San Bernardino County, along with the other agencies in the beginning of your presentation, I know like Feeding America, those type of agencies can assist. You know, they do assist, especially right now during this during the pandemic.
Tori, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. You really said some really great things and provided some really great, knowledgeable tools that our advocates to take away. And with that, I wanted to seg into this final question. I'm going to kick it off with Kiana because I want to make sure that we have time to get to some of the wonderful questions that we have in our chat. And so I'm going to combine two of our questions based off of what you said. And so what is a way that, how do you guys think that advocates, social workers, caregivers, and just anyone who works with former foster youth, how do you think that they could help or be a better assistance? And then if someone out in the world is a former foster youth, current foster youth dealing with food experiences, and experiencing food insecurities, what is a piece of advice that you can leave for them that can help them better navigate through that? And so, Kiana, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. So I think the best help that they can give family, like advocates, social workers, caregivers, is definitely the resources. I think it's like so important because there's so many resources out in the world that can really help with food insecurity, and it can help a family. It can help, like me in general. It can help like a struggling broke student who is in college. And I think all families should be educated when it comes to food insecurity, because certain families aren't aware of like the inflation of what Tori said, like when it comes to food. Like the inflation has risen so much in the past couple of years. It's just insane. And the advice I would give to anyone, to anybody who is suffering with food insecurity, I would honestly say to just not give up and just know the resources in your area, to know what's out there in your neighborhood. And there's so much like out in the world that can help anybody that's struggling with food insecurity, that can help with just anything in general. Like if you're struggling with food and wanting to get groceries, there's so much that you can apply for that that can help with that. Like CalFresh and everything. CalFresh has been very, very helpful for me. And like with Echoes of Hope, I'm part of Echoes of Hope too. And receiving all of the Ralph's gift cards and the Whole Foods cards, and just like any like the I guess like the gift cards as well, like really helped like for me to buy food and like snacks and anything that I needed. So yeah, I would just say just like the resources definitely would be able to help, and just not give up for anybody who's struggling with food insecurity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kiana. Definitely important to not give up. And our caregivers and social workers just being a little bit more adequate and advocating for us and providing us more resources. That definitely is a tool that they can take away from today's topic. And so I'll pass it over to Sky, and then Tori, you can just jump right in.
So just the question on what can social workers and community members do? Was that the question?
Yes, and then also, providing, just one piece of advice to someone who's had lived experience, to help them navigate if they are experiencing it as well.
Yeah, so I just remember being so hungry right before I got put in foster care. I was hungry all the time, and so I really relied on school lunches and school breakfast. And so I had to be at school on dot, like early, an hour early, so I could get my breakfast and get my hot food and get my lunch. And if someone ever ate my lunch, that was, ooh, if someone took pieces of my chicken nuggets or whatever, I was so hungry. And so luckily when I got into foster care, that was fixed. My foster mom actually did cook homemade meals. That was so nice to have. And gave us so much support, and she always allowed us to go into the pantry and into the refrigerator. And so I would just say to social workers, to foster parents, to anyone in the community who helps or supports foster youth, give them free access, give them free reign of your household. You don't know this child's background. You don't know what they've been through before. You don't know what other foster homes they've been to where, as many here have mentioned, were not had locks on the cabinet or locks on the fridge where they could not get food, or come from families like I do who just didn't have nutritious food or forced me to eat disgusting food that made me sick, you know? So you don't know that child's background. You don't know what they've been through. So just let them know, hey, you can eat whatever you want, have the fridge fully stocked, have the cabinet fully stocked. You know, when Ariel was sharing her experiences, that's so sad that that family didn't take into account her culture and where she came from and the food that she ate. They should have asked her, what did your mom feed you? What type of food did you enjoy at home? And they should have tried to accommodate that. Even if they had a different culture and a different cuisine that they made, they should have tried to accommodate the child in that scenario. If you're the parents now inviting a child into your home, making that space a safe space for them, you should at least ask them, what type of foods do you enjoy? What do you like eating? So I would just say again to foster parents, social workers, any community leaders who work with foster youth, please ask the child what they want. Try to accommodate them the best that you can. You know, if you're a social worker and you see that your child is hungry, you know, or the case that you have, you see that their foster parents are being really restrictive with food and having locks on the doors. See what you can do to help that child. See what you can do to help provide some healthy food. And just a word of advice, I guess, to anyone who is a former foster youth, who has lived experience and is facing food insecurity. Yes, like Kiana had said, you know, take advantage of these wonderful programs. If you do qualify for CalFresh benefits, get it. I had it when I was at UCLA because I had Bruin Guardian Scholars Program. So I was able to enjoy that. And when I did have to evacuate campus during the breaks and house hop and couch surf, at least I had food stamps to back me up. At least I had access to some grocery shopping. But as soon as I left UCLA, I no longer had that. But if you qualify, take advantage of it. There are so many food banks. There are so many pantries. Colleges are trying to remedy this problem. They know that food insecurity affects 1 in 3 college students. I saw that statistic and I was like, what? That's insane. 1 in 3 in the wealthiest nation in the world. So they're trying to remedy that problem. They're having food pantries on campus. So if you go to a public school, if you go to a school that has a lot of student support services, ask about that if you need to. And don't be ashamed, because I think a lot of times former foster youth or anyone really who deals with, you know, poverty or lower socioeconomic status or food insecurity, they're ashamed and they don't want to ask for help. Or sometimes it's not shame, sometimes it's pride. Sometimes you think that you don't need the help, or why take it if someone else needs it, or you're just too prideful to admit that you need the help. Just let go of that. If you're hungry, if you're dealing with food insecurity, don't be afraid. Just go ask for help. Go to the food pantry, go to the food bank. And if you can, get connected with the organization like Journey House, like Echoes of Hope, like One Simple Wish. These are nonprofits that specifically support former foster youth. And Echoes of Hope has been phenomenal because I don't qualify for CalFresh. So they have been giving me those gift cards, and that really makes a difference. I mean, the fact that I just got emailed some DoorDash vouchers, $50 each, that was amazing because DoorDash, all of the food delivery apps are so expensive. All of the service fees and the tags, all of that adds up. So it was really nice to have a voucher that I could just use to get myself some food when I'm, you know, too tired, too stressed out to cook. I don't have the energy because my chronic health conditions may be acting up. It's really nice to have that support. So get connected.
Thank you so much, Sky. Thank you so much. Tori, I want to pass that same question over to you before we jump into the audience questions. There's two of them that I wanted to ask you guys specifically. And so, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll be quick. I think Sky and Kiana did great with their feedback. Resources is like number one. We have to be willing to, the resources have to be there, but the resources are there. So we have to be willing to go and access those type of resources, you know. As far as like social workers or county members or the courts and things like that, I believe like if the clothing allowance is mandated, there should be a food allowance mandated. Just go ahead and slip that right in there too for our foster youth who's still growing up in care. And then I seen something on your slide in the beginning as far as like community. Gardening is so therapeutic. It's therapeutic for like trauma, for issues that you're going through. You being able to put your hand inside soil, being able to, just feel the earth. It can eliminate a lot of problems. You can grow your own vegetables, you can be more connected to like spirituality, and then you can also like help your community. So I think like gardening would be something that personally I would try to get into, like so that I can have the youth in my community or even the elders in the community come along and you can grow your own fruits and vegetables, and then you come over there and you pick them and you use them, so I would definitely recommend that. Advice that I would give to anybody who's facing food insecurity, specifically in a foster home, is to eat. Don't be too prideful. Don't be too shameful. Don't think that you're out of place. That's one thing that everybody on this earth has to do. We have to eat. Make sure that you eat something. You talk to somebody if you feeling like if you can't, you have a voice. Your voice matters. Use it. Make sure that you eat, and if you feel like you can't, talk to somebody about that.
Thank you so much, Tori. And my final segment, my final thought before we seg into the audience questions, I say that you guys have to just be a little bit more as it relates to like CASA or like CASA workers, social workers especially. Stop asking foster youth questions about what's going on in the home that they live in front of the people that they live with. It's okay to pull them to the side or take them to a different space and so that they feel safe. Some of the things that I found is that often the social worker announces that they're coming, so the foster parent is fully aware that they're having visits. And so then that's when the locks are removed from the cabinets, the chains that are put on the door, the it used to be like a little rope and you can like put the little lock on it like they put on bikes, the rope that they put on the door handles to keep it locked. They take those off before you guys show up. So it's like if we're doing like more pop-up visits, or not even just pop-up visits, but like, hey, I'm coming today, but then you like show up at, not, you don't give a particular time. And then during that time, when you're talking to the youth, you're pulling to the side. I've had foster social workers ask me questions about like the abuse that I was experiencing, all of that in front of like the people who were abusing me. And so like, how am I gonna feel supportive and proud to, share what's happening to me or what's behind the scenes if once I say no one's even doing the due diligence to, just really even fact check what's happening, in the home and checking behind the doors and in the closets to make sure, the man ain't in there. And that's just a whole different conversation. And so, again, I want to thank our panelists for being here today, for answering these wonderful questions. I want to make sure that I want to ask, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get to all of the questions in the chat. And so we were trying to answer some of the questions in the chat. But I did see a really, really good one that I want to segue out. And so we talked a lot about, you not feeling safe or, sometimes you feel afraid because of your experiences, and it may be a home that you enter in and they want you to explore their cabinets and go get as many snacks as you want to, but psychologically in your mind you already have created that space that that's not something that you're supposed to do because you've either been abused or told not to do it. And so how can foster parents and caregivers make incoming foster youth feel comfortable enough to explore their cabinets and to make them feel welcome in their home, so that trauma that they've dealt with during their lived experiences is not an influence of what's happening or taking place in their home. And I'll kick it to you, Tori.
I say I don't think we can make any kid do anything, reassurance to just continue to let them know, hey, you hungry? Like, go get you something. There's stuff in there. You're welcome to it. I know it's dawning on me that my sister, she always says, like, my kids eat me out of a house and a home, you know? So I know that kids can, you know, go crazy, especially if it's like a bunch of snacks. So I'm not saying, you know, just like open it up, hey, it's a free party type of thing. However, if you know that, because you receive a little bit of background on this kid when you receive the child into your home. And so therefore, one, social workers, make sure that you notate that type of information so that the foster parent is aware once they come into your home. And then once they get there, you know, just make sure that you're allowing, you're reassuring them that my casa is your casa, you know, if that's what you're allowing. My food is your food. If you're hungry, you go eat. If they don't catch on to it quickly, that must mean, you know, they just like trying to just test the waters a little bit. Just continue to reassure them, you know, so that eventually with reassurance, we practice, we make improvement, you know, and so you continue to talk to them about being welcome inside your home. They're going to eventually be welcome in your home.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tori. Kiana or Sky, did you guys want to chime in on that question from the audience?
I'll go. Okay. I guess I'll say the same thing that Tori said. Just make sure that you that the child feels comfortable in your home, to make sure that they know that it's okay, that they can go in and grab, you know, whatever that they want. Like like if they're hungry, that they can go in the kitchen, grab whatever they want, and go in the refrigerator, go in the cabinets and grab whatever. Because I feel like like it's really scary, like entering like a brand new home and not knowing, you know, like the rules and like, can I grab that? Am I allowed to, like, you know, sit on the couch and like, you know, as long as I want? Or am I allowed to, you know, like go outside or like, you know, play, you know, like on the grass, like, you know, like if it's like a little child. So I just feel like being comfortable, making sure the child feels comfortable is very, very important. And to make sure that they feel safe and that they are welcomed into your home as well. When I was 9, when I was placed into the foster care when I was 9, the foster mom that I had, she was an amazing woman. She was so, so sweet. And I still like miss her to this day. She was just like an amazing woman. She accepted me into her home. Like the first thing that she told me, like when she was giving me a tour of her house, is like, these are the snacks. You can grab whatever you want. You don't even have to ask me. You can grab whatever, grab as much as you want. You don't have to ask permission. Just grab and take. And I was like, wow, like like this would not be okay with my mom, like at all. So, like, you know, just grabbing snacks whenever I wanted to. I had to ask my mom if I wanted to like have a snack. I had to ask her. But the foster home that I was at, she just really made me feel really safe and secure, and she really made me, you know, it really made me comfortable in a way that I can talk to her about anything. I can just walk in the kitchen whenever I wanted to, or I can like, you know, grab whatever. And she made like really, really great homemade meals. So just like providing just really nutritional meals, making sure the child feels comfortable is just, that's just like very, very important.
Thank you so much, Kiana. Sky, any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate, similar to Kiana, to have had a really amazing foster mother. I know that that is not the experience for all former foster youth. I know that some homes are nightmares and much worse than your biological parents even, but I am very grateful to have had a wonderful foster mother. And I guess what I could say is what she did right. You know, she gave me an example of what to do right. And so that can serve as a tool for all of you if you are a foster parent or you work with foster parents. Yeah, like Kiana just mentioned, just have the child feel safe, make them feel welcomed and supported and invited in your home. I mean, my foster mother did the same thing. She was like, here's the food, like here's the cabinet, here's the pantry, here's the fridge, like take whatever you want. She always had healthy snacks. So her next door neighbor had an orange tree. So we always had fresh fruit in the house. She would buy apples and all kinds of delicious fruit. We'd have, she always had dried fruit. She always had dates and figs. We always had popcorn. We always had animal crackers. She made delicious home meals. She'd make pasta. She'd do breakfast for dinner. So we'd have pancakes and sausage and eggs. Lots of really good potatoes. She makes delicious turkey. I mean, so we always had delicious food. And if we were hungry, we could just go in the cabinet and get whatever we wanted. And if we wanted to cook for ourselves, we were welcome to do that. She encouraged us. She would help teach us if we wanted to learn how to cook, if we didn't know how already. And if we did know, she's like, there's the noodles are in the cabinet. Here's the vegetables. Here's the fruit. Here's canned goods. Here's everything. Just you have free reign. Do whatever you want. And I think that is one of the best approaches, just making a child feel that they are welcome to do whatever they need to do in the home and that they can just grab food. Same thing for me, Kiana. My biological mother would always have me ask permission. I mean, talk about food insecurity. I was slapped in the face if I ate something without asking permission. If I simply wanted a popsicle or a fudgesicle in the fridge, or someone had a candy bar they left out and I wanted it because I was a kid, if I ate it without asking permission, I'd get hit. So being in foster care was so amazing to have a woman say, hey, you can have whatever you want in the house. And if you get hungry, let me know. And I can stock up more stuff and have a home cooked meal to come home to after a long day at school, doing after school programs, doing tutoring for AP calculus, doing all the math homework and all the stuff that you do in high school. It was so nice to come home to a home cooked meal. So those are just ways that you can make a child feel supported and feel welcomed and make sure that there's no such thing as food insecurity, that they always have a home to come back to, they always have food that they can grab.
Can I also just say the mom that I have now, the mom that adopted me, the mom that like raised me into the woman that I am today. I mean, she also made me like the moment I stepped into the house that I was adopted into, she really made me feel safe as well and making me amazing home cooked meals. I mean, yeah, like my mom can also really cook as well. I mean, she grew up with a mom that can cook, and my like everybody in my family is like they can cook, so she can cook as well. So she made me feel really really safe, and just like all the meals that she made me, they were very nutritious and they were very healthy, and they were very it wasn't filled with junk and like sugar and like sugary drinks and everything that can like cause diabetes. So yeah, so I was fortunate enough to have such an amazing mom who has done above and beyond for me, and I'm very very grateful for her for that. So I just wanted to clarify that, to shout her out how amazing she is.
I accidentally muted myself. I'm so sorry. Well, thank you guys so much again for sharing. Um, we have about 6 more minutes, I'll say. And so we did have one more question that I wanted to ask, and from the audience members, and then we'll get ready to close out. And so I'm going to ask you guys to just be really quick and really brief. So, what translated as safe for you, and how did caregivers make you feel safe? And that question came at the last minute, but I felt like it was a really, really great question to close the segment out, the question segment out with. And so I'll to Sky, and then Kiana, you can pick up, and then Tori, you can chime in with your final thoughts.
Again, I'm just really fortunate to have met my foster mother. I really do feel like the universe brought us together. She was a former foster youth herself. She was actually in 4 homes. And so she knew what real severe trauma looked like, but she also was in homes that were loving and supportive, and that inspired her to be a foster parent. And so she got educated. And I think that's something that foster parents seldom do. She studied early childhood education, and she initially was going into the daycare sector, but then she felt that it was her calling to become a foster parent. And she really wanted to give back to her community in that way, and open her home to children. And so she knew firsthand from lived experience what trauma could look like in children, but she also knew, because she had that education, she got that degree to understand that. And so I would say that if you can understand what a child has been through, even if you don't have lived experience, if you could go out of your way and make an effort to learn, to get educated, that makes children feel safe, because then you understand what trauma looks like. You understand the signs, you understand the symptoms, how it manifests, how it looks different in each kid. You start to really identify with that, and you start to empathize, even if you don't fully know what it's like yourself. And you just open your home in a way where you let the child know, hey, I'm here. Anything that you need, you can have. If you need help with something, ask. That's really what makes a child feel safe, is validate their feelings, sit there and try to understand their experiences, even if you haven't been through them yourself, and get educated so you have the knowledge and the skills to really support children in that way.
Yes, thank you. Kiana, please feel free to share your final thoughts, and then Tori, you can hop right in.
Okay, so I guess I would translate it as safety for me. Like I always felt protected in all the foster homes I was in. From the first one till like even though I was like a baby until I was 3, I felt safe in that home. I felt safe enough that I even spent the night with them like 3 weeks later. So like they're still that close to me as well. And then the mom that I have now, the home that I was adopted into, I felt protected with her. I felt protected in the foster home that I was in. I was 9. Like all the foster homes that I was in, I felt protected and secure 24/7. I never felt alone or scared. Um, and I never felt any type of fear in the home, if that makes sense. Like my environment was safe. I didn't feel threatened, and it wasn't a place where I really felt afraid. Like I had peace, and I think having peace is very important because even as an adult now, I still try to protect my peace. If that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. It makes absolutely a lot of sense. Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much. So, Tori, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so what translated safety for me, I've been in multiple homes. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, every experience was different. Sometimes I had homes with the foster parent where I didn't feel safe. There was no peace. I did feel alone. There was actually one, like I mentioned, Mrs. Lowe and Rialto. That woman was God given, and her family included. And I felt safe there. What translated as safety to me in her home was her open communication, her transparency. There was no, I'm your foster parent, you're my foster child. She was Nana, I was the child. Come down here, come talk to me. What are you going through? Why are you closed off inside that room? Come and talk to me. We going to church, get up, get dressed, and she was that way with everyone. It wasn't directed towards me in a malicious way. It wasn't I didn't feel like she treated me any different than she treated her grandchildren, and so her transparency, me being able to see her just be honest and vulnerable with everybody, and her perform the same way towards me, it was like, okay, this woman is what I see is what I'm getting. What I get is what I see. She's an honest woman, and so therefore I was able to like trust her, and with trust comes safety. Once you're able to trust that person in your life, everything comes with it. You'll feel safe. You won't feel alone. She was one to show up to my basketball games, get me into basketball at AB Miller High School in Fontana. She was one to like encourage me, like, you are so smart, you getting straight A's. You know what? I'm gonna start rewarding you for these A's. You keep bringing back A's to the house, and I'm gonna give you $20 each A that I see on the report card. Things like that. Just being able to encourage somebody through their hard times, and being able to be transparent and being able to be honest. Show the same respect that you show to your biological family to that foster child, and they'll be able to trust you, and they'll start to feel safe with you.
Thank you so much, Tori. So we're gonna pull the PowerPoint back up, and so this the next slide will be available to you. These are a list of resources. Some that from some of these are from the evidence that we use today in our PowerPoint. It will be available to you in your follow-up email that you will receive after this ends. I also wanted to let you guys know that if you like this event and you enjoyed it, if you did it, I dropped a post evaluation survey in the chat so that you guys can tell us what we can do better, and what kind of topics that you want to see at the next event. And speaking of our next webinar, we are going to be hosting our webinar on March 29th at 10 a.m. PST time. It's called Somebody's Child or Nobody's Child, and basically we will be discussing the impact on that you've had on youth who were placed in the foster system because their parents were incarcerated. And so I look forward to this conversation. It's going to be very, very powerful. And so we'll be dropping the registration link in the chat. So if you would like to attend, please register now or once you receive your follow-up email. In addition to this webinar for National Foster Care Month in May, we're going to be hosting a webinar inviting 2 social workers and 3 lived experience youth to come and talk about how they and provide tools on how to better deal with youth who have been abused and has experienced maltreatment. So if you are a social worker out in the audience who would like to participate on the open forum, normally we like to leave this space for our lived experience youth, but I want to welcome 2 social workers on to be panelists as well to share how they have, dealing with youth who have been abused before they were placed in the system and while they were placed in the system. And I also would like for them to provide some tools to caregivers and to other social workers on how to recognize and combat and help foster youth navigate through that. And so if you're interested, when you fill out your post evaluation form, there's going to be a question about if you're interested in being a panelist. Please do so and just put something like National Foster Care Month so that I can reach out to you. Other than that, I want to first thank our panelists again for having the vulnerableness to be able to share your experiences today. I hope that this webinar was everything that it was for me, that you guys enjoyed it as much as that we enjoyed putting it together. I want to thank our wonderful person in the back helping us with our tech and assisting us with our support, Sarah. We appreciate you for being here today and helping guide us through these PowerPoints and dropping links in the chat and communicating. And so we definitely want to make sure we recognize you and give you your flowers. As well to our audience members, we hope to see you again at future events. If you have foster youth that are in need of mentorship, I am dropping my email in the chat. Please reach out to me. I have tons of opportunities available to current and former foster youth, those who have been adopted. If you've experienced any type of child welfare, systematic, been in any of those situations, please reach out to me. We have a safe space and an open platform to provide opportunities in mentorship and leadership and journalism training to current and former foster youth, especially if you have been impacted by the juvenile justice system or homelessness. With that being said, again, my name is Raquel. The proud program manager for the Youth Voice program. I want to thank you all again for being here today, and we hope we'll see you next time. Again, thank you to our panelists and Sarah, and we will be following up with you guys with the follow-up email. As soon as the recording transcribes, you will be receiving the follow-up email. So, before we end, let me put my email in the chat. I'm sorry, I was just really talking right now, and didn't write it. Didn't even write it. So I am dropping my email in the chat. Please reach out to me. I have a lot of opportunities. As you guys can tell, I'm very passionate about the work that I do. I'm literally living in the light that I wish somebody would have offered to me when I was emancipated from the system and navigating. And so I don't necessarily consider myself a survivor. I'm a thriver. And so with that being said, you guys have a great Thursday. God bless everybody. Good day.
Thank you.